Hi, is this Cassidie? I heard on the other end of the phone. This was not a voice that I recognized. I am a doctor. I'm calling you from the emergency room. And I am so sorry to be the one to tell you, but your dad has died. What? No. I'm sorry. What happened? I just talked to him a few hours ago, and everything was completely fine. Cassidie, I am so sorry. We did everything that we could, but your dad had a sudden heart attack, and he is gone. It was in this moment, although I did not realize it at the time, that I was not only losing my dad, but also losing the version of me who had her dad in her life. Simultaneously, something else was also happening. I was emerging into the role of sole executor for my dad's estate. Little did I know then, this experience would integrate everything I had done professionally in my life up to this point and lead me to a series of major life changes that bring me here with you today. Now, let us step back for just a moment. I know this can all feel really heavy, and someone talking about their grief may bring up big feelings for you. But I promise you, this is not all going to feel heavy. In fact, I hope you find this to be real, relatable, and uplifting. When I tell people that I research grief and bereavement leave, the reaction, it is always the same. Oh, wow, that must be a lot. And I totally get why this would be their reply. However, I love it. And I know there is a way for us to talk about this inevitability without it getting us down. This story I'm sharing today is happening on two timelines. Let me describe them both, and then together we will discover how they converge. Each timeline is unique, but both are rooted in how an individual identifies the alignment that they feel between what they ultimately pursue and how that connects to the unique experiences they've had in life. We all have this connection and the ability to realize it. Let me say more. All right, so let's first jump in to timeline number one. This starts a few years before my dad died. I'm working professionally as an advocate at one of the largest food security nonprofits in California. We were part of the Feeding America network. I led legislative efforts to secure funding and policies to ensure that healthy foods were affordable and accessible to everyone. In this work, I brought together community members who had lived experience with food insecurity and poverty. They would share their stories with me, and over the course of a policy training program I designed, I helped them turn their stories into powerful legislative testimonies. Their stories were serving as the qualitative evidence for our policy advocacy. And for those who are not fellow policy lovers like myself, this just means that we were trying to make policy change by showing the human impact, not just solely relying on the numbers or the data. I remember the first time I met with the advocates, I was so nervous. And although I couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time, I was nervous because, as I now understand, I saw all of these individuals as these subject matter experts because they had lived it. They've accessed SNAP. They knew what it was to feel that pain in your stomach because you do not know where your next meal will come from. And how was I supposed to direct this group of individuals on how to lead effective food security policy change when what I brought to the table was my academic and professional backgrounds, which made me really good at policy, but I did not have the expertise that the advocates had. Among all of this, I learned there was one question that brought their expertise to the forefront, and collectively, we drove really effective change. And that one question was why? Why, in this scenario, are you so passionate about ending hunger? For those who may be familiar with Simon Sinek and his Start with Why concept, we adopted that framework, and over the course of this policy training program, I helped advocates cultivate what we called their why statements. What is so profound about this model is that it forces the person to reflect on how their life journey has led them to pursue what it is that they are most passionate about. What inspires them? What drives them? What feels aligned to them? And how can they effectively articulate that to others in order to drive change? When a person starts thinking this way, they gain crystal clear clarity on their values, where they want to have an impact, and what inspires it all. Each aspect of that rooted in, you may have guessed it, their lived experiences. Or, as I like to call it, lived expertise, which I define as the inherent knowledge and insights that an individual has on a certain subject because they have lived it. It was while in this position that the power of lived expertise became clear to me. I worked with over 100 advocates from all over the country to cultivate their why statements. And then I went on to help dozens of nonprofits all over America implement what is now called the client-centered advocacy model. Using this model, advocates have been undoubtedly successful. Some of them going on to present at the White House on hunger, others receiving awards for their advocacy from the state of California. I had proven to myself that lived expertise was the most pivotal driving factor for effective policy change. When an anti-hunger advocate and I would run into an elected official, the elected usually did not remember our names, which is fine. They certainly did not remember the numbers or the data we had shown them the last time we met, but they could instantly recall the personal story of the advocate, demonstrating that it is the storytelling about our expertise that resonates. Absolutely no shade to my fellow data-loving policy friends, because it takes both. It's a duo of absolute polarity, but somehow they need each other to set a complete picture. All right, let's now hop into timeline number 2. And we are regrouping at my dad's death. And shocker, I'm really depressed. Like crying all of the time. Yes, because I'm so sad, but also crying because of this newfound awareness that it is possible to feel this level of heartbreak. But until you have truly lost one of your most important humans on this planet, you cannot understand the utter depths of pain that grief can catalyze. So as I mentioned, I became my dad's sole executor. My dad was not married at the time that he died, and I am an only child. So it was just me, myself, and I with the responsibility of handling everything in the will, taking care of his final wishes, and putting on the funeral. My dad died on a Saturday night. As soon as I got that call, I was in the car to get to his home in the next state over. That next morning, Sunday, I saw him physically for the last time at the morgue, which is also where I had to decide what to do with his remains. This became the first of the many decisions I had to make on topics I knew nothing about. Over the next 3 months, while grieving my dad, alone in a new state at 25 years old, my life became a full-time job of carrying out all of the instructions my dad proactively left and navigating all the big decisions as best I could. My dad He was a phenomenally organized person. Not only did he create a binder for me with all of the estate documents, but he included everything from the Netflix password to the name and number of the realtor he had pre-selected to sell his home. I imagine how emotional it must have been for him to curate this binder, as it is a full acknowledgement of the inevitable. I feel this binder, it's an act of love. It's a gift of ongoing support my dad has been able to provide me from beyond. But as sole executor, I also learned what cannot be planned for, the things that do not make it into the binder. I learned while at the morgue that day that I was required to select a cremation container. I knew my dad wanted to be cremated, but that was all of the instructions I had. This container is something that he would be in for a matter of minutes before it too no longer existed. My options for this container, however, they had range. They ranged from the $50 option titled cardboard box, all the way up to the $7,000 legacy cherry wood casket, which even included an upholstered mattress with a matching blankie. Let's just all put ourselves in that situation for just a moment. What does it say if you select cardboard box? But then again, what is indicated with the $7,000 selection? Regardless, I wanted to honor my dad. This is just one example of the constant cognitive and emotional load executors are experiencing, shining light on why they might not be able to return to work in just 3 days, which is industry standard in America. Okay, we're gonna park it right here, and we are gonna fast forward to this moment together with all of you. It has been almost 4 years since the sudden loss of my dad, and I am now in my final year of graduate school here at the Duke Sanford School of Public Policy. The common thread has now emerged. This is the beautiful integration of my lived expertise with my academic and professional pursuits. This is my why. While here at Duke, I have been able to use the why framework that I had been teaching others on myself. And I've arrived at this point where I truly feel the most aligned. I research grief and bereavement leave policies, which is the type of time off you can request when a loved one dies. Specifically with my research, I want to know, how could bereavement leave policies be made most effective for executors, but all grieving workers, when informed by the lived expertise of those who have experienced loss in combination with subject matter data on grief? This is where our two timelines, they collide. Whatever the topic, lived expertise is critical, not only from a policy lens where policies are made the most effective and sustainable when informed by the insights of those they're intended to serve, but for each of us as individuals in our own lives. Because when you are basing what it is that you pursue in this world on that driving factor, that same inspiration that stems from your unique set of lived experiences, then you are showing up as the subject matter expert that only you can be, and living in the truest sense of alignment. This is beyond what can be learned from any degree or credential alone, because this is the human experience, and your lived expertise is uniquely yours. To be clear, this doesn't have to stem from something traumatic like hunger, poverty, or the sudden death of a loved one. These are extremes. But reflect on the moments that are profound, the ones that have altered your perspective and ignited that fire that makes you so deeply passionate about a cause. Younger me, we could not have predicted that I would be doing grief and bereavement policy. And it has been such a challenging journey to find what healing looks like to me, to experience joy after such devastation, yet it continues to transform me and bring me into a deeper sense of alignment with all else I have pursued thus far in life. As I have seen from multiple areas of policy and in my own life, lasting and resonating change occurs when those who know their why are integrated into the change-making process and stay rooted in their lived expertise. My flavor of change-making, it continues to be public policy, and I encourage you to reflect on what yours is. Our driving force, it may not be what we anticipate for ourselves, because beyond what we experience, it is how we respond to what we've lived through. We all have this connection between what we ultimately pursue and how that connects to our unique experiences. And we can all refine how we articulate that in order to drive the change we are most passionate about. So, stay open to what life brings. It may only be in retrospect that its meaning becomes clear. Stay strong so you are able to move through the hard moments. Embrace the expertise that is uniquely yours and let it transform you. Thank you. Thank you.